This Choircast podcast is brought to you by my book, Unless a Seed Falls to the Ground, Welcoming the Death of the Whiteness Gospel. I wrote this story as a plea for white Christian America to enter into a season of hospice spirituality to recover from the cancerous lie that we can start over, be in charge, and recover some original purity of Christianity. One friend calls it a love story to the church, the United States, and the entire human family. It's available now on Amazon.
Welcome to the Unbelief Podcast, your journey, actually our journey together beyond inherited beliefs to a spirituality that works for you. I'm your host, Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. We can fix that later, right? No? You've reached another book club episode of the Unbelief Podcast, and we are continuing an exploration of a story that at the beginning of this year feels like it has a lot of poignance and power and importance, a resonance with what's going on. It's this story of a people who are in a place where they're like, I don't know how we got here. I don't know why it is so bad, but please, God, help us out of this place. Please send somebody to help get us out of here, help bring us into something better. And of course, when they go into something better, it's also hard, just in a different way. This is the story from the ancient spiritual text called the Exodus, the book of Exodus. And today we are going to look at chapter 4, which, man, oh my gosh, this chapter is a part that like sort of takes a turn into magical. This is the part where you are, you've had this burning bush moment with God speaking, but now the real excitement starts to happen, the real magic, the real stuff. So let's just look right here, right at it. It says, right, to put it in context, Moses having the burning bush experience. There's a bush that's burning, that's not being burned up, and God is speaking to Moses through the bush. And in chapter 3, God has said, "Okay, I'm gonna send you to free my people who have cried out to me, and I've heard them, and I've remembered all of my covenant with them." That all just happened, and then Moses answers God at the beginning of chapter 4. But look, they may not believe me or listen to me, but say, "What? The Lord didn't appear to you?" And I love this because this is me, right? When I think of this kind of thing happen to me, I think, okay, if I heard a burning bush, and then I believed it, and then I thought, okay, I'm actually going to do this. My next thought would be to start imagining going to these people who are oppressed and being like, "Hey, your God sent me, and I'm gonna get you out of this." Because I imagine the people hearing that being like wanting it to be true, but also being like, "Wait, what are you talking about? Who are you? Like, how do you know our God? Like, did you guys meet in college? Like." So this is the thing. Moses is like, how are they going to know? Which is a legitimate question. And then the magic starts. It says, the Lord said to him, "What is in your hand?" Now remember what Moses was doing before this. Moses was tending to sheep. And so if you are a person who tends to sheep, you have a staff. You carry a staff in your hand to help you, tap them on the side to say, no, that way, no, this way. If you've ever seen people herding sheep, you've seen this happen. You can look for a video of it on YouTube. There's always a staff, and that's part of how they guide the sheep. So the Lord says, what do you have in your hand? And Moses says, a staff. And then God says, throw it on the ground. So Moses does just that. Moses throws the staff on the ground, and it becomes a snake. And it says Moses draws back from it, right? So this is a snake, and if there is a difference in different words for snake, which it's not clear that there are, this is a poisonous snake, but if there isn't a distinction, then all the words mean poisonous snake. They don't like many people. You don't look at this giant snake and say, "Oh, let me get closer and see if it's poisonous." No. You see the giant snake and you draw back from it. You run away, which is what Moses does. But this is a sign, and the staff turning into the snake. This is a powerful sign in the ancient Near Eastern world. In this part of the world, the sign of the snake is important, right? The sign of the snake, like eventually there, that sign, the staff that has the snake twining, kind of going around it. That sign is a very, very ancient symbol. You see it oftentimes on the side of ambulances, right? It's called the Asclepian sign. And it comes from this Greek god of medicine and healing. Yeah, medicine and healing. And in the Egyptian world, they worshipped snakes. So you sort of wrap some of these ideas that are in that part of the world up into this sign, right? For Moses to be able to offer a sign of something that the Egyptians worshipped, it is to make a staff into a snake, right? That symbol is in part that this God is bigger than that God, because this God can create that God, but it doesn't just create it, right? It continues on about this snake, and it says, the Lord says, reach out your hand and seize it by the tail. And then it says, so he reached out his hand and grasped it. Now this is interesting. What God tells him is this like really forceful, confident gesture. The verb there, to seize it by the tail. Go up, walk up, grab it by the tail. And it says, then the Lord, or I'm sorry. So, but then it says what Moses did is he grasped it. And one scholar that I was reading said, if you want to sort of put it in that word into more of an idiomatic phrase in English, it says he snatched at it. Moses, he's drawn back from the snake. God says to go up, walk up and just like grab it by the tail. Like, you own this snake. Just walk up and grab it, seize it like you would your staff. But Moses is still scared. I mean, he gets it. He gets a hold of it, but like not confidently, right? Which is very human. It feels very much like I can identify with that. Okay, God, yes, I got it. I will go grab it, but I'm not going to be confident. But here's the thing, right? So the staff turns into a snake and then back into a staff, right? It turns into this being that Egyptians worship, and then by the hand of Moses, ultimately, obviously by the hand of God, but Moses, who's going to be this messenger of God, just goes up, grabs the snake, and it turns back into something normal, something that is a symbol of the life of a shepherd, which is not a glamorous life, right? Yeah, this is God saying, to whoever gets to see this, first it's going to be the Israelites. Yeah. I'm a God that's more powerful than that God, right? More powerful than their God. Yeah, you can trust me. You can trust me. So that's what they believe, right? They believe that their God is the greatest, the most powerful of the gods. And to be clear, at this point, we are still believing in other gods. That's the way this story goes. So this God is greater than other gods. So not only is it a sign to them that Moses has had this divine encounter, but it's also a sign of the power of their God and a sort of an affirmation that no, Moses didn't just have an encounter with some random Egyptian God. No, he had an encounter with the God, like with their God, the God that is way bigger than this snake God that the Egyptians worship, right? And so then it says, the Lord says to him, and I love it, that God is like plowing through. God's not waiting for more doubts. God's not waiting for more questions, just giving him the tools. Like Moses has asked, what do I do? He says, okay, staff, snake. Got it. Pick it up. Let's go to the next one. And then it says, the Lord says to him, put your hand inside your cloak. And just to give you a little bit more color here, this is like putting his hand inside where his skin is, the skin of his chest. Put your hand inside your cloak. And so he does that. But when he takes it out, his hand, it says, was diseased, white as snow. Now, this is important because this is taking it up a level. Because skin diseases in the ancient world, they're dangerous. They're real bad. People are really scared of them because they are incredibly contagious, and not just contagious if the person touches you, but secondary touch if the person touches something and then you touch it. Like there is this concern that like these diseases can spread like wildfire. And so you've got to imagine that the expectation of the reader, or the reaction of these early readers when Moses has one of these skin disease is pretty severe. Because later in the book of Leviticus, we actually get a sense of like how severe it is. It says like in Leviticus chapter 13, verses 45 and 46, it says, the person who has skin disease shall wear torn clothes and let their hair of their head be disheveled. And then he shall cover his upper lip and cry out, unclean. He shall remain unclean as long as he has the disease. He is unclean. He shall live alone. His dwelling shall be outside of the camp. Right? When you had skin disease, it was over. You had to wear special clothes. You had to keep your hair a certain way. You had to yell out that, hey, I'm unclean. I have this skin disease. And when it came on you, you had to pick up. You had to move outside the camp, which was a dangerous area to be. Because if you're outside the camp, right, you guys are there for mutual protection. When you're outside the camp, oh, man. Yeah. And you know how like deeply isolating that is? I don't know if you've ever been outside the camp, right? There's this group that you used to belong to, that used to protect you. They used to be your community, the people that the wagons were circled around and you were all inside. Yeah. When you're inside, when you're in the camp, you feel secure. You feel safe. Like I really feel like the emotion word for me when I think of that is grounded. And grounded in the sense of like a tree being grounded. That you've got roots. You are secure. Things are going to be okay. They might not be perfect, but you're in the community. You're in the camp, right? Yeah. Yeah. And then something happens. You get a skin disease, right? Maybe it's that you start questioning, you start doubting, and or maybe, I don't know, you do something to offend one of the leaders of the camp, whatever that camp is for you or was for you. And you find yourself being walked to the edge of the camp and outside being said, and people saying, yeah, you got to live here now. Yeah, you can't be inside the camp anymore. That's a hard walk to take. Walking outside the camp. A lot of people who were in a more conservative, evangelical tribe, camp, church, they start questioning, they start forming beliefs that disagree with the dominant belief structure, the dominant narrative, or even the leader. Yeah. And then at some point, either they say, no, I can't do this anymore, or somebody else shows them the door and says, like, I'm sorry, you can't do this. You can't be with us anymore. And man, I've experienced that. And it is unmooring, right? You've had your ship tied to a dock, right? You've had your ship tied to this stable thing. And as damaging as it was, as constricting as it was for your ship to be constantly tied to this dock, to this anchor, when you walk out, when you leave the camp, it's like the cord is cut. The anchor has been drawn up. And all of a sudden, at least for me, it felt like I was adrift at sea. Like that, I wasn't sure. Like, I wasn't sure how to operate the boat, but even once I was sure how to operate the boat, I wasn't sure where I needed to go. Right? The destination had already been decided on when I was tied off to the dock. Right? But now I find myself in this open sea, right? That's what people often say. They feel like they're adrift. They feel like they're in this ocean of spirituality and they don't know where to go. Yeah. They don't know where to go. And so eventually they find the controls. Eventually their sense of being adrift, their being just sort of moved by the currents of their life, they see a little island up ahead so that they can start moving that way. Yeah, that's a lot right here, because when the people who are reading this, they're not reading this story about Moses for the first time, right? Moses is a figure in their mythos, right? He is a figure in their story. They know him. They know that they know what's going to happen. They know how important a figure he is. And then to see that Moses reaches his hand in, and when he brings it out, it is covered with disease. It's a shock. Wow, is Moses going to have to change his clothes, mess up his hair, leave the camp, right? Is he going to have to do that? And so then the next verse, when he brings this out, God says, put your hand back into your cloak, which is equally shocking, because what if he now takes this diseased hand and he touches his chest with it and the disease gets worse? Yeah. Sometimes the signs of God to us in our lives are shocking. They can even make us feel very uncomfortable. And sometimes those signs come in a wave, right? The divine is trying to speak to you, and you get, the first thing, which is pulling your hand out of your cloak and saying, oh my gosh, what's happened here? And then the second thing, to put your hand back in the cloak. And you're like, but what if this ruins everything? what if it all comes undone? Yeah, put your hand back into your cloak, God says. But Moses, I think probably the snake thing helped him get here, but Moses does it. He puts his hand back into his cloak, and when he takes it out, it's back to normal, right? It's back to like, and everybody, reads, offers a collective sigh of relief. Yeah, okay, good. Moses is not going to have to mess up his hair, change his clothes, leave the camp, all of that. God has brought him back in, which, I don't know, for me, I find a lot of hope there, because sometimes when you're ushered to the edge of the camp and you are taken out of everything and you are unmoored and you are adrift and all of that stuff, it can feel like there will never be a camp again. Yeah. I'll never be a camp. Like, there's never going to be a little tribe for me. I've left it all behind. But part of this sort of different layers of meaning here, if we sort of extrapolate it, it's not, obviously, it's talking about Moses. Let's be clear. If you're looking for professorial Jeremy here, it's not talking about other things specifically. And yet, when we read ancient spiritual texts, the way that we need to read them is open to metaphor, to deeper meaning. And here, if we extend that metaphor into our current lives when we are unmoored and all of that, there is hope. There are communities where people who feel like me and you, that have deep doubts and questions, especially those people who have left the church and are on the outside. This has some resonance because God heals the hand. So now Moses can rejoin the camp. And I love that because I don't often want to go back to the camp that rejected me, but there are other camps that you can discover. And if you allow yourself, the divine, the universe will draw you towards one of those. I wonder if that's why you ended up at this random podcast episode, if you want to be mystical about it, because we have a camp like that. We call it Not Church. Not Church is like this group of people on Discord who are exploring spirituality, asking questions, being there for each other in tough times, right? Holding space for difficult times. All of that. We even have a channel to process the political landscape with other spiritual people. It's all of those things, and there's nobody in there telling you you're going to hell for what you believe, right? So we do that on Discord. If you're ever interested, you can just go to patreon.com/skepticpastor. It's $3 a month to get access to the Discord. It's $3 because we're not going to ask people to give us 10% of their income. Pay what you get. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine. Just stop paying. Yeah. So we have this camp, and it's a camp where you can come in with whatever you need to come in with. And it's a camp of healing. Like, it's the snake and the staff, right? It's that kind of place. And then God says, okay, look, you got these two signs. If they don't believe any of those two signs, if they need another, here's your sort of backup. Here's your trump card. Here's the one that's sort of going to go to a whole other level. He says, you shall take some water from the Nile, pour it on the dry ground, and the water you shall take from the Nile will become blood on the dry ground. Now, this is prefiguring, foreshadowing this bigger miracle, judgment, whatever, that God is going to give to the Egyptians, turning the water of the Nile to blood. But this is like, look, I'm going to show this to you. You don't have to use it. They probably are going to do the first two signs. And it turns out that's the case, right? That Moses brings the two signs, the first two signs, and they believe him. He never actually gets to do this third one here. And I love this. So now Moses has had a lot of problems, a lot of issues. I think they are realistic issues. But I also think that maybe Moses has a bigger issue that he's not been directly addressing, right? Because he's ashamed of it, because it's a place of pain for him. I don't know if you've ever done that, right? Where you don't want to do something because of something that brings you shame. And so you try to find other excuses, public excuses that you could say, oh, this is why I'm not doing X. So that you don't have to reveal the thing that brings you shame. I know that for me, I did not grow up in a really sportsy family, right? And I was not good at basketball or soccer or football. And in the 90s, in the culture that I was in, if you were a male who did not have those skills, you were ushered to the edge of the male camp. I didn't just not have the skills. I didn't even understand how the games were played at all. And so the way being ushered to the edge of the camp at that time was the coaches were all about sort of increasing the humiliation at PE. I don't know if that was their intention. It sure felt like that to somebody who wasn't good at sports. Because the way they did it is they said, okay, here's the two people who are the best at this sport. You guys choose teams. And they would just sit there and they'd be like, okay, I want John. Then the other guy would say, okay, I want Jim. Okay, the other guy would say, I want Sam. And it would go back and forth until me and someone else were left, clearly unskilled, and somebody would be chosen. I was often the last one, but if not the last one, I was second to last. The other guy who couldn't throw a ball or kick a ball. Yeah. And so I was on the outside of the camp. But I was ashamed of that. I was ashamed of not being able to play sports and all of that. I was a singer. I was in choir. I did all of that stuff. I did theater. I did those things. But when it came to PE and to sports, I was ashamed that I couldn't. And so I would find other excuses. Oh, my arm hurts. Oh, I didn't bring my clothes to dress out in, right? So that I could have an excuse not to be humiliated, right? Yeah. I think that we get that sense here. Moses has said, oh God, what name am I going to give him? Expecting God to not give him a name, but God gives him a name. And then Moses says, but okay, even if I have the name, how are they going to know that like I had this encounter with you? How are they're going to know that my relationship with you is legit? And so God gives him these signs. Feels like to me in verse 10, Moses is breaking down and he reveals the real pain and the real shame. But Moses said to the Lord, "Oh, my Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor even now that you have spoken to your servant. But I am," here we are, "slow of speech and slow of tongue." It appears that Moses has some sort of speech impairment, or maybe even some sort of cognitive difficulty that gives him a different set of abilities than other people, but where he doesn't speak well. If you've ever been around somebody who has a speech impairment, a lot of times, if you get to know them, they're actually like smart, right? They're intelligent. They can do really great things. Their brain is not affected, But because they have this speech impairment, people think that they're dumb. People think that there's something wrong with their brain. People think that they are not able to do the normal tasks, when many times it's just something with their mouth. It's just something that has happened or that they were born with that makes them speak differently. Man, and it's embarrassing to them. To a lot of them. Not all of them. Some of them own it and just go with it, but a lot of them, it's a place of deep pain for them, deep shame for them. And I feel like that's the energy that Moses is bringing in this passage. Yeah. He says, God, you can hear me right now. I can't talk. People don't respect me when I speak. You want me to go and speak to these people, and my speaking is going to be the thing that convinces. People think I'm dumb. God, when I talk, people think I am not intelligent. Yeah. And then the Lord pushes back. And I like that. I like the way God pushes back on him, because sometimes there's a moment for tenderness, right? And sometimes you need somebody to just say, hey, I know that's hard, but you're going to have to get over it. This is your life. This is, you've got to, I will be there for you, but I need you. You are an intelligent, capable person. I need you to not let that hold you back. I need you to be the person I know you to be, this strong and powerful person. I need you to do that, because you are the person that can make this difference. If you will rise above the pain and the shame that you feel, if you will find it within yourself, you can do this thing, this hard thing. And so the Lord says to him, who gives speech to mortals? Who makes them mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you are to speak. God says, Moses, no, I've got you. I just showed you these signs. You know I am powerful. Go. Don't let your pain hold you back. I want to say, again, it's not in there. The word again's not in there, but you know it's again. You know this has been a struggle for Moses, and a legitimate one, not one that he's made up. It's been a hard thing. I grew up, my mom was a special education teacher, and I grew up around people of all kinds of different abilities. They were called disabilities. At the time, the word retarded was used. It's not an okay word. I grew up around those people. They're beautiful. They're incredibly passionate and capable people. They just have different abilities. Sometimes they look different. Sometimes they sound different. Sometimes they walk different. And can we just stop for a minute to recognize that even still, in our modern evolved culture, those people are still sidelined. They're still taken to the edge of the camp and often walked outside of the camp. They live in a little community, often of people like them. We're still there. But now let's recognize that out of all the people that the divine could choose in this moment, it's not the eloquent speaker. It's not the person just that is good at speaking. It's not just that he has anxiety over public speaking. No. This is the person who sounds wrong when they speak, or who sounds different when they speak. It's that person. It's that kid. It's that guy. That is the person right here in this passage that God is choosing. But Moses, these wounds run deep. Having known many people like this, I can tell you these wounds run incredibly deep. They're defining wounds. And I imagine that right now Moses is terrified. He is now coming face to face with his deepest wound. And God is saying, I'm sorry. I can't let you cop out on that. I know that you're ashamed, but we're not going to let that stop you. I will be with you. I will help your mouth. And Moses' response, you think maybe he's going to respond, oh yeah, okay, you're going to be here with my mouth? Okay, I got it. Yeah. He doesn't. No, Moses says, oh my Lord, please send someone else. When I read that, I feel Moses in that moment. The shame, the sense that he is not qualified, the sense that there is something wrong or broken about himself that says, God, I know you are confident in me. I am not confident in myself. I can't get over that. Send someone. No, anybody but me. I can't do this, God. He's vulnerable. I imagine he's a little sensitive, a little tender at this moment. And then it says the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. And he says, what about Aaron, your brother, the Levite? I know he's got his mouth works the normal way. Says, I know that he can speak well. Even now, he's coming out to meet you. Probably Moses has been gone a while. Probably Aaron is concerned. He's going to go out and find Moses. He's coming out to meet you. And when he sees you, his heart will be glad. Yeah. Aaron is going to be happy to see his brother. And then God says, you shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and will teach you what you shall do. Indeed, he will speak for you to the people. He shall serve as a mouth for you, and you shall serve as God for him. Take in your hand the staff with which you shall perform the signs. So God says, all right. I'm kind of pissed that you can't trust that I will help you, but I am not giving up on you. I will no longer allow this wound to stop you from what I need you to do. I will not allow this wound to stop the people of Israel being rescued from slavery, right? I'm not going to allow that. So here's Aaron. He can speak for you. And it's interesting, Aaron can speak for him, but Aaron's not going to be the agent of God. It's still Moses. God says, I'm going to let him speak for you, but it's still you. You got to go. You can talk to Moses, or you can talk to Aaron, and Aaron will talk to the people, but no. It's going to still be you. Yeah. I love the way God sticks by Moses in this moment. gives him a thing that he needs to overcome this deep shame and deep pain, but ultimately doesn't let Moses out of the task at hand. I love that, because when I think about my deep wound, my deep wounds, my deep pain, my deep shame, over and over again, I want to say to God, look, there's this thing about me. There's this thing in my past. There's this thing. I can't do it. I can't be the person that you need me to be in this moment. I can't be here for these people. I can't do the thing. Can't. And my experience is that sometimes I push back hard enough that I just am obstinate. I said, no, I'm not doing it. And so I don't. And I miss out. Which Moses doesn't do here. He doesn't say, I'm not doing it. He says, I can't do it. And I think that's an important difference in orientation. Saying like, I'm not, no, sorry, God, no, I'm not. Just sitting down, crossing his arms and opting out. Moses keeps saying, no, I can't do it. And God says, no, you can. I'm going to help you. And for me, when I can allow my pain and my shame just enough, like when I can have just enough strength to not sit down and cross my arms, to say, I can't do it. My experience is that God, the divine, the universe, whatever it is, helps me do the thing. Sometimes in an unpredictable way, sometimes in a way that almost feels like you're not doing it, even though you're doing it. Yeah, if we can just move from I won't to I can't, right? I won't is obstinate. I can't is just defeated, maybe. If we can just, it's a tiny degree of difference. But if we can do that from I won't to I can't, man, that's where the good stuff is. Yeah. So we didn't make it through the whole chapter because this is one of those chapters that it's just got so much. And that's the way that ancient spiritual texts are, right? These texts that have survived for millennia, that have informed the lives of people for thousands of years. The depth is there. That's it. That's all the depth is there. If you just uncover it, if you just sit with it, if instead of reading the text, you start to try to allow it to read you. Yeah. So let's keep doing that. I told you about the Not Church group, patreon.com/skepticpastor. Wherever you are finding this podcast, if you could give us a rating, all the stars, if you could actually leave a little bit of a text comment and just say, hey, well, this is really great. All of that stuff really helps us. So, man, take just a second at the end of this to just, instead of going right on to the next thing, just do it. Just give us the stars. Say like, oh, we love this podcast. That would really help. That's it. That's the podcast. Shout out to the Choir Network, to Patheos, to Matthew and Keith, who make everything happen. Now, get out of here. Go do something to make the world a better place. Okay? We'll see you next time.